Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with the keywords that made headlines this week. U.S. strikes on Iran are sending shockwaves across the global geopolitical landscape with potential ripple effects for major powers, including China, Russia, and North Korea. President Lee Jae-myung is strengthening South Korea's ties in Southeast Asia, holding summit talks with leaders of Singapore and the Philippines to expand cooperation in AI, nuclear energy, defense, and trade. South Korea's major telecom companies showcase the next wave of artificial intelligence at this year's Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, highlighting how so-called agentic AI could transform everyday services. President Lee Jae-myung held talks with Singaporean Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, signing MOUs on cooperation in AI and nuclear energy and agreeing to upgrade their bilateral free trade agreement. Yoon Jung-min filed this report from Singapore.
It was a warm welcome for the South Korean president on his first state visit to Singapore. Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Tharman Shanmugaratnam together named an orchid, a unique Singaporean ceremonial event for foreign leaders, representing a stronger friendship.
이렇게 정말 아름답고 향기 높은 난초를 제 이름을 붙이게 됐으면 정말로 영광입니다.
The sentiment was extended into a one-on-one.
양국은 인적 투자를 통해서 지금과 같은 성장 발전을 이뤘다는 점에서 이런 유사한 점이 있습니다.
Friends South Korea and Singapore strengthen our relationship and contribute to a more stable and predictable architecture in the world.
Bolstering the bilateral strategic partnership was a focal point of Monday's summit with Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, the Singaporean head of government.
오늘날 초불확실성 시대의 경랑을 헤쳐나가기 위해서는 어려움을 함께 극복하며 신뢰할 수 있는 진정한 동반자가 더욱 절실합니다.
As like-minded countries with similar strategic outlooks, with a shared commitment to free and open trade and a rules-based order, I believe there is much more that Singapore and Korea can do together.
The talks yielded key deliverables, including MOUs on trade, science, AI, and small modular reactors.
우리 두 정상은 올해 발효 20년을 맞는 양국 FTA를 통상 및 경제, 안보 환경 변화와 기술 발전을 충분히 반영하는 방향으로 개선하기로 하였습니다.
They also agreed to strengthen their joint efforts to tackle transnational online scams and bolster their partnership in investment, defense industry, and culture.
The Korean band BTS is performing here at the end of the year, and I understand that Singapore is their longest stop in Asia outside South Korea and Japan, so we look forward to welcoming them.
Also addressed was the conflict in the Middle East and its possible impact on global security and energy. On the Korean peninsula, Lee also asked Wong to play a constructive role for regional peace, noting that Singapore was the venue where the 2018 North Korea-US summit took place.
Blue House officials say the summit is significant in many ways, given that Singapore is seen as a logistics and financial hub and a key player in the ASEAN bloc. On Tuesday, President Lee will head to Manila. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Singapore.
Marking 77 years of diplomatic relations, South Korea and the Philippines have pledged deeper cooperation across defense, energy, and technology following summit talks in Manila. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports from Manila.
The summit in Manila began with an official welcome for the South Korean first couple, with the Korean folk song Arirang sung by a local choir. Tuesday's talks between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Ferdinand Marcos Jr. coincided with the anniversary of when the two countries established diplomatic relations 77 years ago. The leaders noted the sacrifice of troops sent from the Philippines during the Korean War.
대한민국의 자유와 평화를 위해서 목숨을 바쳐 함께 싸워준 우리 필리핀 참전 용사들에게 존경과 감사의 마음을 전합니다.
That bond, cemented in solidarity during very difficult times, continues to guide our strategic partnership.
Building upon the friendship, a pledge was made for cooperation in the defense industry, as well as promising sectors such as nuclear energy, critical minerals, shipbuilding, and AI.
필리핀 바탄 원전 재개 타당성 조사 결과 및 신규 원전 사업 도입 협력 MOU를 기초로 양국은 최적의 원전 협력 파트너로 자리매김하게 될 것입니다.
I expressed appreciation for the Republic of Korea's invaluable assistance and contributions to the modernization of our armed forces and strengthening of our Coast Guard, the investments that help revive our shipbuilding industry.
MOUs were signed for cooperation on a range of areas, including digital technology, science, Korean language, and cultural exchanges. The leaders also addressed peace on the Korean peninsula and the conflict in the Middle East.
영내 정세와 함께 최근 중동의 상황에 대해서 논의하였고 중동의 안정과 평화가 조속히 회복되기를 소망하였습니다.
We both recognize the growing uncertainty in geopolitical developments, which is why we agreed on the need to firmly and consistently uphold a rules-based order governed by international law.
The South Korean first couple was later hosted by their Philippine counterparts for a state dinner.
Top office officials say President Lee's trip is also aimed at reaching out to the broader ASEAN region at a time of increased global uncertainties. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Manila.
President Lee Jae-myung wrapped up his visit to the Philippines by spotlighting manufacturing, energy, and infrastructure as key pillars of deeper economic cooperation between the two countries. Our correspondent Song Hee-jin reports.
Manufacturing, energy, and infrastructure. What President Lee Jae-myung sees as the driving forces of cooperation between South Korea and the Philippines.
그동안 양국 관계가 굳건히 발전해온 데에는 오늘 이 자리에 계시는 경제인 여러분의 역할이 매우 컸다는 점을 알고 있습니다. 앞으로도 통찰력 있는 판단과 과감한 도전으로 새로운 기회를 열어주시기를 부탁드립니다.
During his final day in Manila, President Lee took part in the Korea-Philippines Business Forum. The event brought together government officials and major business leaders from both countries. They include the heads of South Korea's Lotte Group and HD Hyundai, as well as the Philippines' SM Prime Holdings and Alliance Global. In his congratulatory remarks, Lee highlighted the strong potential for the two countries to join hands in manufacturing by leveraging their respective strengths.
필리핀은 니켈, 코발트 같은 핵심 광물을 보유하고 있으며 한국은 반도체와 전기, 전자 등 첨단 산업 제조 기술을 가지고 있습니다. 조선 분야 역시 협력 잠재력이 매우 큽니다.
On energy, Lee said South Korea could play a key role in the Philippines' plan to introduce commercial nuclear power plants by 2032, citing Korea's world-class reactor technology and clean energy capabilities. Regarding infrastructure, he expressed confidence that logistics projects modernizing ports and railways in the Philippines involving Korean firms will boost the local economy once completed. Wednesday's forum resulted in the signing of 7 memorandums of understanding.
All of these will ripple into significant partnerships that will generate projects, investments, and, of course, livelihood.
Among them are agreements to introduce new nuclear power plants and train skilled shipbuilding workers in the Philippines. The Blue House says the Korea-Philippines Business Forum marks the first business gathering of its kind in the ASEAN region since President Lee took office last June. This underscores the Philippines' growing importance as a key economic partner for South Korea in ASEAN. Song Hee-jin, Arirang News.
Tensions over the escalating conflict in the Middle East were felt in South Korea on Thursday as the top diplomats of Israel and Iran engaged in a war of words through separate media briefings in Seoul. Our Oh Seong reports.
Fears of a prolonged conflict in the Middle East are reverberating beyond the region as Iran and Israel's top diplomats convey clashing narratives to the Korean public. Meeting with reporters in Seoul, Iran's ambassador Saeed Kuzeychi said on Thursday that his government is prepared for a long war with the United States and Israel, stating there is currently no plan to return to nuclear negotiations as long as attacks on Iran continue. As the conflict stretches out, he said there could be far-reaching implications for East Asia, where economies such as South Korea rely heavily on energy supplies from the Middle East. The ambassador also noted the possibility that US forces stationed in South Korea could be deployed to the region.
The U.S. has denied this, but we do not trust their response. If you understand Iran's geography, ground deployments make no sense. If the U.S. wants to take reckless actions, we welcome it, and many people will die.
He rejected accusations of Tehran's nuclear weapons development as false propaganda and a pretext to justify pressure and war. In sharp contrast, Rafael Harpas, Israel's ambassador to South Korea, held a press conference the same morning. He defended the initial February 28 strikes as necessary to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and expanding its ballistic missile capabilities, and to protect Iranian civilians from a brutal regime. He claimed Iran had already reached the final stages of nuclear development last year.
Iran is deceiving, cheating the international community for how many decades about nuclear program for peaceful use? Iran wants nuclear program for one. If they want to drag the time in negotiation, they want the world give them one chance, another chance, another chance. If we wait, they will become nuclear like North Korea.
The Foreign Ministry has expressed grave concern over the escalating situation, with hope that dialogue and negotiations will soon be resumed. It also reaffirms Ho's strong commitment to the global non-proliferation regime as it actively participates in international efforts to address the Iranian nuclear issue. Seoul also says it's closely monitoring developments between the US, Israel and Iran, focusing on the safety of Korean nationals in the region and safeguarding global energy supplies. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
U.S. strikes on Iran are sending shockwaves across the globe with major implications for China, Russia, and North Korea. For more on this, we have our Kim Bo-kyung in the studio with us. Welcome, Bo-kyung.
Thanks for having me, Sujin.
All right, so let's start with China. So experts say the U.S. strikes against Iran could pressure China in many ways. Could you elaborate more on this?
Yes, Washington's military action against Iran counters Beijing both politically and economically. As you see, Iran is a key member of groups led by China, the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and has been one of China's key partners. So an Iran under attack could weaken China's influence in global geopolitics. Not just that, as Iran is at the center of China's ambitious One Belt, One Road initiative, tensions in the Middle East could also hinder China's grand plan. Here's what an expert said.
The Belt and Road includes both land and sea routes. The land route goes from China through Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran to Europe, but it's now blocked. Since the U.S. is targeting China's key partners, this could deal a serious diplomatic blow to China.
Economically, too, China is a huge buyer of Iranian oil, having imported more than 1 million barrels of Iranian crude oil per day on average last year, according to research firm Kepler, accounting for more than 80% of Iran's seaborne oil exports. Thus, if Iranian oil supplies are disrupted, Beijing would have to face higher energy import costs, leading to inflation and causing economic difficulties.
When oil prices go up, insurance costs rise, and higher production costs push up overall prices. If Iran, which has served as an alternative energy route, is blocked, it will affect not only China's military, but also its economy and defense industry, both directly and indirectly.
And on the other hand, Russia could benefit from the tensions in the Middle East. Is this true?
Right. So if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked for a long time, China would have to find alternative oil suppliers. And in that case, countries like China and India could increase their imports of Russian crude. Russia already benefited earlier this year after the U.S. action in Venezuela. So Moscow may be hoping for similar conditions again. The expert also noted that Russia maintains working relations with all parties involved, the U.S., Iran, and Israel, which could position Moscow to act as a potential mediator. And we should not forget that the war in Ukraine is still ongoing. As global attention shifts to Middle East, Ukraine risk could be pushed out of the spotlight, a situation that could once again work in Russia's favor. Take a listen.
Because of this war, the conflict in Ukraine is being overshadowed, and many of the massive weapon supplies that were going to Ukraine are now being redirected to the Middle East. In that sense, Russia's position in the current situation is not unfavorable.
I see. So when it comes to North Korea, many say the U.S. attacks on Iran dim the prospects for North Korea-U.S. talks. So how did North Korea react to the strikes on Iran?
Right, so North Korea strongly condemned the U.S. on Sunday, calling the strikes gangster-like conduct, though the tone was moderated as the statement did not directly mention President Trump. Also, according to the Korean Central News Agency on Thursday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspected his regime's new 5,000-ton destroyer, the Cheon, for 2 consecutive days ahead of its commissioning and watched tests of ship-launched surface-to-surface strategic cruise missiles. One expert says the move appears aimed at showcasing North Korea's military strength following the recent events in Iran.
This likely reflects a strategic intention to demonstrate military strength in response to the situation involving Iran in the Middle East and as a counter to the upcoming South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises.
Apart from that, pundits say the chances of potential talks between Kim and Trump have become slim, as attacks on Iran after failed nuclear negotiations would have eroded North Korea's trust in talks with Washington, likely pushing the regime to strengthen its nuclear program. This is what another North Korea expert said.
Although the regime is trying not to provoke the Trump administration, Kim believes that nuclear deterrence is the only way for the North to survive. It sees strengthening its second strike capability as the only way to prevent Trump from miscalculating or taking one-side military action.
Well, we would, of course, have to see what strategic decision Kim would make, but for now, the chances of the talks are slim.
All right, Pogyun, thank you so much for sharing these insights with us today.
Thank you.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has inspected a newly built 5,000-ton destroyer and watched a strategic cruise missile test.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspected his regime's new 5,000-ton destroyer, the Cheon, for 2 consecutive days ahead of its commissioning and watched tests of ship-launched surface-to-surface strategic cruise missiles. According to the Korean Central News Agency on Thursday, Kim toured the destroyer at the Nampo shipyard on March 3rd and 4th to review its operational capabilities and the combat training of her crew. Touting that the ship's maneuverability met requirements, he said the destroyer was a new symbol of the regime's maritime defense capability. Regarding the simultaneous launches of at least 4 strategic cruise missiles, Kim reportedly called the test a core element in evaluating the ship's operational capabilities. One expert says the move appears aimed at showcasing North Korea's military strength.
This likely reflects a strategic intention to demonstrate military strength in response to the situation involving Iran in the Middle East and as a counter to the upcoming South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises.
Kim ordered the construction of a further 2 Cheon-class warships displacing 5,000 tons or more every year for the next 5 years, underlining the need to boost the regime's maritime capability. During his visit, Kim also looked over the 3rd Cheon-class destroyer being built at the shipyard, which has a targeted completion date of October 10th, the anniversary of the founding of the Workers' Party of Korea.
Since its naval power significantly lags behind that of South Korea and the U.S., such aforementioned plans may be part of an effort to boost its nuclear-capable naval forces.
The Cheon is the regime's first newly built operational 5,000-ton destroyer and was launched on April 25th last year. This was followed by the launch of a second in the class, the Kanggon, though it partially capsized during an initial launch attempt. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has ordered swift action to stabilize South Korea's economy amid growing fallout from the Middle East crisis. At an extraordinary cabinet meeting on Thursday, he called for crackdowns on fuel prices and market manipulation as oil prices climb and markets remain volatile. Our economics correspondent Kim Do-yeon tells us more.
At the extraordinary cabinet meeting held on Thursday due to the Middle East situation, President Lee Jae-myung emphasized protecting the economy. His remarks came specifically after the national average price of gasoline surpassed 1,800 won for the first time in about 3 years and 7 months. The national average price for regular gasoline rose 2.5% on Thursday from the previous day to 1,821 won per liter, while automotive diesel jumped 4.76% to 1,811 won per liter. The president strongly emphasized the need to crack down on foul play, taking advantage of the current situation, and ordered the cabinet to devise measures to prevent price gouging.
나 관광지에 손님 많이 오니까 바가지 씌워야지 이런 거 지금 제재하잖아요. 근데 이 석유 판매에 대해서는 이 바가지 아닙니까? 이 바가지에 대해서는 제재할 법적 근거가 현재는 없다는 겁니까?
President Lee also stressed the importance of protecting the stock markets, which have been surging over the past few months before being heavily impacted by the Middle East situation. He ordered his cabinet to properly and swiftly execute and manage the 100 trillion won market stabilization program. For now, the local stock market rebounded on Thursday. The benchmark KOSPI closed at 5583.90, up 9.63% from the day before. During trading, a buy-side sidecar was activated due to the rapid surge. The recovery follows a historical fall of 12.06% on Wednesday when a circuit breaker was activated. The KOSDAQ index also closed at 1116.41, surging 137.97 points, or 14.1% from the previous session. This marks the largest increase in its history. Regarding the market volatility, President Lee ordered strict protection measures against market manipulation and fake news.
이럴 때 기승을 부리는 가짜 뉴스 유포, 또 시세 교란 같은 범죄 행위도 철저하게 차단하기 바랍니다. 특히 국민 경제의 혼란을 조장해서 이익을 취하려는 그런 세력들에 대해서는 무관용의 원칙으로 엄중하게 책임을 물어야 되겠습니다.
Meanwhile, the local currency strengthened slightly against the greenback. The $1 exchange rate closed at 1467.041, down 0.62% from the previous day. 김도현, Arirang News.
At this year's Mobile World Congress in Spain, South Korea's three major telecom companies are showcasing how agentic AI can power smarter, more personalized customer services. Park Chun reports from Barcelona.
Marking the 20th anniversary of its debut in Barcelona, the world's largest telecommunications event, Mobile World Congress 2026, began on Monday local time. Bringing together around 100,000 visitors from 200 countries, the event highlighted how companies are positioning themselves to meet customer needs amid rapidly advancing technology.
In line with this year's theme, the IQ era, companies here in Barcelona are merging human and artificial intelligence to create a smarter future. Let's see how that vision is turning into reality.
South Korea's three major mobile carriers, SK Telecom, KT, and LG U+, have converged at this year's event with a strategic pivot toward agentic AI. By positioning themselves as the core brain and infrastructure of the AI, companies are developing systems capable of independently planning and executing complex tasks, making proactive decisions to anticipate and meet user needs. SK Telecom, under the concept of full-stack AI capabilities, included features like a hyperscale AI model, fraud detection, and personalized secretary-like AI agents.
With the evolution toward agentic AI, we see its role handling tasks on behalf of the user, acting as a true AI assistant. We focused on how much of a customer's workload AI can take over, and how quickly complex processes can be completed with just one click.
KT has set up a booth that blends technology and culture, featuring a dedicated pavilion modeled after Gwanghwamun Square. While most exhibits focused on business-to-business solutions and work models, one thing that stood out was its serving robot.
Based on what you're seeing right now, how many guests do you think there are?
Based on what I'm seeing right now, there is currently one guest, and the estimated...
The robot recognized the number of guests, suggested where to seat, and even offered an apron if needed. It represented the next level of service robotics, autonomously anticipating customer needs and taking action before being asked. Meanwhile, LG U+ showcased voice-based AI services under the agenda of humanizing every connection. The company's CEO, Hong Bum-sik, also took part as a keynote speaker at the opening ceremony, where he emphasized the voice that connects people. The company also showcased AI agent Ixio's next-generation model, Ixio Pro, which functions as a proactive partner that suggests solutions before being asked. The company said it also plans to make its AI agent compatible with humanoid robots. By integrating intelligence into every connection, the firms at MWC 2026 are laying the groundwork for a future where AI isn't just a tool, but a proactive infrastructure that understands and moves with us. Park Jun-han, Arirang News, Barcelona.
That brings us to the end of Weekly News Highlights. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.